I am suffering from boredom. So, in order to squeeze that boredom, I thought I'd make myself a video, not knowing what topic it would be about, not having any idea what to discuss, merely monologuing to myself and seeing where this goes. And maybe post it onto the internet. I don't know. It would get me back in the spirit of doing something, but I guess I should talk about that because I guess that's a good topic to start from. So lately, I have realized the effects of internet addiction on my life, and just, everyone knows we're addicted to these things, and we love it and we hate it at the same time. I guess I hate it a little too much. So, addiction. Yeah, internet addiction. Ever since I was like 4 years old, and that's like the first time I can really remember stuff. I've always been hooked on technology and computers, and I remember when I was 4 years old, and that's back in like 2003, 2004. So technology and computers weren't as developed as they are today, but I remember that I would sit down outside with, or like there was an office area in our old house that had a computer in it, obviously. But I remember I would use that all the time to play like kid games on sites like Nickelodeon Junior or CartoonNetwork.com, and I'm sure they still have games on those sites nowadays too, but I was hooked on that kind of stuff as a kid. And I remember like my parents even encouraged it a little bit because it gave me stuff to do when I was bored. I don't know if they realized the ramifications of that, but to be fair, we were a generation that grew up with technology to begin with. So it's interesting, though, thinking back that I really was hooked on computers and technology and games ever since I was 4 years old, and it's just gotten worse from there. So I want to cut the cord more, but I'm struggling to do that. It's like whenever I'm bored, I want to fill my time with something. And I've been trying to get in the habit of filling in that time with other things. Like back in junior year of high school, I had a phone similar to this, and the phone broke. Like, not actually breaking, but like whenever I tried to turn it on, it would show me the Apple logo and then turn off a few seconds later, and it would be like a cycle of that. It would continue to do that for a long time. And when I tried turning it on just once, it would fail to turn back on until it just ran out of battery. So instead of doing the common sense thing and telling my parents about this so that we could get the phone replaced, I decided that I wanted to not tell anyone about this and keep it to myself and see how long I could go before anyone noticed anything, and if I could adjust, if I needed to adjust at all. And those 3 months are really, really cool months in my memory because I communicated more in person about what my plans were for the day. I didn't have this on me to check every 10 minutes whenever I felt bored and wanted something to look at to grab my attention. I was thinking more. I was writing more in this handy dandy ideas journal that I have. I remember also I was driving in my car and I noticed that there was a CD disc in there, like CD sets, like you could put CDs in it, whatever. Beforehand, I had always used my Bluetooth speaker and hooked it up to my phone so I could play songs over like iTunes or Spotify. But now, without that at my disposal, I was listening to CDs. And I also found out that my dad has some spare CDs in his basement that I figured he wasn't using for anything. He used them like years ago when he was doing sound recording for a band he played with. We haven't used any of that for a long time. So I figured he wouldn't mind me taking one and like burning songs onto it. So I went on and burned songs onto that disc, and I had my own little mixtape CD disc. And since then, I've made 5 of them. I've taught my sister how to make some, and she's made 1 so far. And we just have them sitting in my car. And like we shuffle through them every now and then, and it's fun. It gets a little repetitive at times, but it's also nice having like driving music, designated driving music, so you aren't fumbling with your phone while you're driving. You can just like click on the thing at the side of your car. I really liked those developments and those changes that I made to my life and my habits within that 3-month time span. After that time span, my parents picked up on it, and I decided to come clean. Like, yeah, my phone's broken. We should probably get it replaced. And we got it replaced, and I surprisingly quickly turned back to old habits. And so since then, I've been trying to think of other ways that I can like fight my internet addiction. That isn't, just short of breaking everything that I own, because I still need to use this stuff. It's still useful, but it's also, I use it for a lot of redundant stuff too. I need to change what I use technology for, and I think that's what our generation needs to do as a whole. It's still nice to have the communication aspect of it, but when relationships start to be defined through how you communicate with them over Snapchat or Instagram, or it starts to wear down on the relationship. It also starts to wear down on yourself when you're like looking on the phone all the time to entertain you. When I'm around at college here, I sometimes try to eat my meals by myself without looking at my phone once throughout the whole thing. And I realize how much more I think when I'm doing that, rather than mindlessly scrolling through stuff, looking for something to keep my attention. I think that's a start to battling it, if I just actively think about not pulling out my phone as much, so that I'm not looking for it to entertain me. Relying less on that, relying more on my thoughts. Because I'm a person who doesn't get bored of what goes on in their heads. If I can like start there, I think I can begin breaking habits better. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't put much in practice yet. I think that's a generation-wide problem too, that most of us haven't realized is a real issue yet. We're not really acting on it much, I don't feel like. If we are acting on it, then that's the ironic thing, ain't it? Like, if people are working to fix it, they wouldn't really be telling people on social media, would they? And that's where we get most of our information about this stuff, ain't it? My friend Zach, he has a addiction as well, and he realizes it, and he wants to combat it, but so we're kind of on the same level there. We just don't know how to commit to it, and so we don't commit to it. And let me lay down why internet addiction and like our dependency on technology is such a bad thing. It's warping how we act socially to a very negative extent. Everyone has a voice, and that's scary because everyone's forgetting how to listen. And I'm generalizing, of course, and maybe I'm a little too pessimistic on that regard. I don't think I am, though. We are so caught up in especially, us, our generation, the teenagers to the early 20s, we're so obsessed about ourselves and our development and our ideas and what we believe and wanting people to believe what we believe, because like our side is the right side. It has to be. Why else would we believe it? Like, too much of that mentality is going around, and it's affecting a lot of today's culture in such a vastly negative way. Straw man arguments are so much easier to create when on the internet you can communicate about a stereotype or a one-sided aspect of a, belief system or opinion or controversy, so much to the point where the real facts are lost and no one's looking into it anymore because they're obsessed with talking and getting their voice out there rather than listening and trying to research stuff themselves. So everyone's talking and no one's listening, or at least less people are willing to listen. And that's something that's really bad for our culture, because if we forget how to listen to one another and try to understand each other and become much more obsessed about how we're coming off and how people view us specifically in our opinions, and trying to make sure that we're in the right opinion, and that's a mess. It's not a good one. It's not one of the janitors you can just swing by and clean up. It's a cultural mess. Ooh, did you like that snap there? That wasn't planned or anything. I slipped my fingers on this. I've been toying with this. I don't know how many people are going to see this video if I do end up posting it. I hope people do see it, because I want to just get it out there that, one, we're all addicted and too dependent on technology, but technology isn't a bad thing. We just need to come back from how much we're depending on it, because it's like everything's moving way too fast. There's a song by Khalid. Let me look it up quick. Location by Khalid. Yeah, that's a song. It kind of expresses my same sentiments about relationships and how communication's being affected by technology, where everything's going really fast and we're losing a lot of the human touch element, and we need to kind of slow down and bring it back, communicate more in person. 2, we need to learn that our opinions do not need to be out there as much. We do not have to voice them so strongly. The opinions we develop through our exposure through internet communities need to be tested. Straw man arguments on the internet, where the argument is made very one-sided and one-dimensional, when in reality we need to assess our own beliefs more and learn that the other side does not believe everything we think they believe. And that this goes for both sides of any argument and any cultural development that's going on right now, because I know there's a hell of a lot. If we can do those two things, I think we can stop a lot of the shit that's going on in America right now. And that's a big message coming from me just wanting to make a video because I was bored. But these are thoughts I've had for a while, and thoughts I've wanted to say, because I've been listening a lot, and I haven't spoken for a while on these thoughts, and I figured it was about time to get it out there. It might seem hypocritical after, all I've said about listening rather than talking, but this seems like a message worth getting out there, especially in today's kind of time. I think that's about it. Hey, I'm not bored anymore, and now I'll have fun editing this video together. Hey! Learned how to cure my boredom. If you're ever bored, just do whatever, I think that's a good way to start to fighting boredom. Depend less on the phone and the technologies to cure your boredom. Find more practical things, more skill-based things to fill your time with. I think that's a good way to end this off.